Aerial hyperlapses have changed the way we think about time-lapse and drone shots, and DJI's line of drones like the Mavic 3 allow users to create them with ease. Mavic 3's stability and versatility in low light make it a great option for hyperlapsing. So let's get into how to go about making a hyperlapse using your DJI drone. Hyperlapses are essentially a time-lapse where the camera is in motion, making it a much more dynamic version of a time-lapse. Let's go ahead and jump into the DJI Fly app to set up our hyperlapse. You can do this in the photo and video function, and you'll navigate down to the hyperlapse icon. You'll notice there are 4 directional options that you can take for the drone. You can do free flying, circle, course lock, or waypoints. Free flying will allow you to control the drone while you're taking the hyperlapse. Circle will allow you to actively track a subject and orbit around that subject. Course lock will allow you to choose a course and the drone will continue in that direction during the hyperlapse. And finally, waypoints, which allows you to choose multiple points for the drone to navigate to all on its own. You can also choose the drone's camera angle as well. For hyperlapse settings, the DJI app limits you to 2 seconds per image, and that's a good place to start. If you have a scene with slow-moving subjects, whether that be people or even clouds, then consider using a higher interval in between each image. This will result in a quicker moving scene. Thankfully, DJI's hyperlapse feature takes out all of the math necessary to determine how long your final video will take to actually execute. For camera settings, this will depend on your specific scene. I recommend choosing manual settings to avoid any unwanted flickering that might occur with auto exposure. This is especially true for highly dynamic scenes like sunrise and sunsets, where the Mavic 3 particularly excels as it has nearly 13 stops of dynamic range, and shooting with DNGs will make sure that you take full advantage of that. In many scenarios, your best bet will be to keep your ISO setting at its lowest possible. However, for some low light settings at nighttime, you may need to crank that up just a little bit to make sure your exposure is properly adjusted. From there, you can adjust your other settings to compensate. If you're looking to try out daytime long exposures, you'll need neutral density filters. Neutral density filters, or ND filters, reduce the amount of light entering your drone's camera. This will allow you to slow down your shutter speed for longer exposures. Now let's talk about low light settings. For low light scenarios, you want to reduce your shutter speed to be as slow as possible without introducing any unwanted camera shake, all while keeping your ISO as low as possible. This combination is much more difficult if flying in windy conditions, as the drone will have a difficult time in keeping still when taking that long exposure. Now that we've covered exactly how to get going with hyperlapses and we've talked about settings, let's talk about 5 tips and tricks to get better results in hyperlapses. Tip number 1, film your hyperlapse right when you get into the air, when you have the most battery life and the most storage space. There's nothing worse than filming a hyperlapse and halfway through you get an alarm sound because you ran out of battery or you ran out of storage. Tip number 2, choose dynamic scenes. There's not a cloud in the sky right now, so this wouldn't make for a good hyperlapse. Pick a scene with maybe a cloudy sky, a lot of cars, or people moving for the most dynamic result. Tip number 3, I mentioned it briefly before, but avoid shooting on windy days, especially if you're going to shoot long exposures, because this may introduce some unwanted camera shake. Number 4, being that most drones shoot better photos than videos, make sure to shoot your hyperlapses in raw DNGs. Then you could stitch them together in post-production for the best quality. Number 5, experiment with editing techniques to spice up your hyperlapses. For example, you could add rotations, the vertigo effect, dolly zoom effect, zoom ins and zoom outs. This will really make your hyperlapses stand out. I hope this video got you as excited about aerial hyperlapses as I am. We are so fortunate to have tools like the DJI Mavic 3 that make it not only possible, but fairly easy to get incredible results. If you have any questions about what we covered in this video or suggestions on what we should do with the Mavic 3 next, drop those in the comments below. My name is Matt, and thanks for watching.